The rescue mission Hitler never found out about. A secret operation carried out under the noses of the Third Reich. An impossible extraction executed deep behind enemy lines. And a handful of men whose courage changed history without ever making the headlines. January 1945, Central Germany. As the Third Reich collapses under the weight of Allied armies, one forgotten corner of Nazi-occupied Europe becomes the stage for an extraordinary act of defiance. Inside a heavily guarded prison camp near the town of Hammelburg, high-ranking Allied officers, men who carried priceless intelligence in their minds, waited for either liberation or execution. Little did they know, a rescue mission was already moving toward them. A mission so risky, so unauthorized, that if it failed, its commander would likely face court-martial. If it succeeded, history would barely whisper its name. To understand this mission, we must return to the chaos of the final winter of World War II. By January 1945, Nazi Germany was bleeding on every front. In the West, Allied forces had just weathered Hitler's final gamble, the Battle of the Bulge. In the East, the Red Army was racing toward Berlin. Yet despite the collapse, the German war machine remained dangerous, especially to prisoners of war. The Nazis still held thousands of Allied officers in camps scattered across Germany. Among them were men captured in North Africa, Italy, and Normandy, officers with deep knowledge of Allied strategy, unit structures, and invasion plans. One such camp was Oflag XIII-B, located near Hammelburg, Bavaria. Officially designated for officers only, it held American, British, and Allied commanders, many of them senior staff officers. If the SS decided to liquidate these camps before surrender, the consequences would be catastrophic. At the center of this unfolding drama was Captain Abraham Baum, commander of Task Force Baum, part of the U.S. 4th Armored Division. Baum was young, aggressive, and about to be given an order that bordered on insanity. General George S. Patton himself wanted those prisoners freed. Among them was a man Patton knew personally, his own son-in-law, Lieutenant Colonel John K. Waters. Patton did not wait for approval. What followed was not a carefully planned operation approved by Allied High Command. It was a gamble, driven by urgency, emotion, and the belief that time had already run out. What happened next would become legendary. By 2300 hours on January 26, 1945, Task Force Baum rolled out. The force consisted of approximately 314 men, supported by 16 M4 Sherman tanks, 28 half-tracks, several M8 Greyhound armored cars, and limited artillery support. They were ordered to drive over 50 miles behind enemy lines. The terrain was hostile, narrow roads, dense forests, snow-covered fields that swallowed vehicles whole. German units, Volkssturm, SS remnants, and Wehrmacht regulars still controlled the region. By 0200 hours, the column was already encountering resistance. German roadblocks appeared without warning. Panzerfausts flashed from tree lines. Every mile forward increased the risk of encirclement. Baum pressed on. Fuel was limited. Radio contact was sporadic, and the deeper they went, the more isolated they became. By dawn, German forces realized something was wrong. Reports flooded regional commands. American armor moving east, fast, purposeful. By 0900 hours, enemy strength around Hammelburg was growing rapidly. At least 1,000 German troops, supported by anti-tank guns and armored elements, were converging on the area. Still, Baum did not turn back. Fear gripped the men, but so did determination. They knew what awaited Allied prisoners if the SS arrived first. At 1400 hours, Task Force Baum reached the outskirts of Hammelburg. They were outnumbered, low on fuel, running out of time. The assault on Oflag XIII-B began without delay. Sherman tanks smashed through perimeter fences. Machine guns raked guard towers. German sentries scattered or were cut down in seconds. Inside the camp, prisoners stared in disbelief. Some thought it was a trick. Others fell to their knees. Within minutes, hundreds of officers were freed. But the victory was short-lived. German reinforcements poured in from every direction. Anti-tank guns opened fire from just 200 yards away. One Sherman was hit, then another. Baum ordered an immediate withdrawal, but the problem was obvious. There were now over 2,000 liberated prisoners, many weak, malnourished, unable to march. Snow began to fall again. Vehicles bogged down. German fire intensified. By 1300 hours, Task Force Baum was surrounded. Radio contact with Allied lines was lost. Ammunition was running low. Fuel was nearly gone. The mission was unraveling. Captain Baum was wounded by small arms fire. Several officers were killed while attempting to break out. Against impossible odds, Baum ordered the men to disperse. Some prisoners escaped into the woods. Others were recaptured within hours. By nightfall, Task Force Baum ceased to exist as a fighting unit. On paper, the mission was a failure. Most of the rescued prisoners were recaptured. Baum himself was taken prisoner, later dying of wounds in captivity. Yet the story did not end there. In the chaos of the breakout, dozens of officers vanished into the countryside. Local German civilians, many already disillusioned, hid them in barns and cellars. Some provided civilian clothes, others offered food at great personal risk. Small groups moved only at night, avoiding roads, crossing frozen rivers, enduring the bitter cold of the Bavarian winter. Over the next 2 weeks, more than 300 Allied officers successfully reached American lines. Intelligence officers, commanders, men who would later help coordinate the final push into Germany. Hitler was never informed of the raid's true purpose. To him, it was just another minor armored probe, lost amid the collapse of the Reich. What he never knew was that critical mines had slipped through his fingers. Little did he know, those men would help shape the final chapters of the war. Casualties were severe. Task Force Baum lost over 90% of its strength. Nearly all vehicles were destroyed or captured. Captain Abraham Baum was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. General Patton was criticized for authorizing the mission, yet he stood by it, believing the lives saved justified the cost. The rescued officers returned to duty. Some participated in the liberation of concentration camps. Others assisted in post-war occupation and intelligence operations. The mission was quietly buried in official histories. No victory parade, no headlines, just the knowledge that, for a brief moment, human courage pierced the heart of Nazi Germany against impossible odds, driven by loyalty, urgency, and hope. A rescue mission Hitler never found out about. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to Past Horizon as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.